Bordered by US 41, Boulevard of the Arts, and Centennial Park, the historic cultural district in Sarasota, Florida, represents the last sizable acreage of public property with access to the bay. The City of Sarasota, the Sarasota Bayfront Planning Organization, and Sasaki Consultants from Boston are seeking a unique vision from residents and stakeholders for the redevelopment of the area for what has been dubbed the Bay. Sarasota History Alive has taken that request to heart and would like to share with you our hope and vision for preserving a piece of our local heritage while simultaneously creating a guide of a possible future for our growing municipality. As Sarasota continues to build residential condos and hotels near this thriving part of the community, it increases vehicle traffic while further eroding pedestrian access to the bay. With proposed roundabouts and fewer traffic signals, pedestrian access could potentially be cut off entirely. However, this is not a new problem. In the late 1950s, US 41 was rerouted through Lukewood Park, and the bayfront was dredged. The controversial action disconnected the downtown business area from the bay. Fast forward to today, and the dilemma still exists, despite the number of architects, engineers, and consultants who have attempted to solve the issue. The Bay Project offers us an opportunity to solve the predicament once and for all. Though Main Street and the Marina are not included at this time, we will demonstrate how the Rosemary District, the downtown core, and the Bay property can be connected at convenient junctures. In doing so, a host of outdoor activity options would be created, making possible walkable areas and entertainment spaces that would draw residents and visitors alike year-round. This area has changed many times through the years. After the 1920s land boom fizzled, many local enterprises were failing and people could not pay their taxes. The only nearby structures that survived this downturn were the Bellhaven Apartments and the El Vernona. It was at that time when then Mayor E.A. Smith saw to it that the bayfront land would be purchased for public recreational use. In 1937, the city received government-sponsored WPA grant money. As a result, in 1938, the Art Deco and Art Moderne Municipal Auditorium was completed by famed architect Thomas Reed Martin. Afterwards, he was commissioned to create the Chidsey Library Building, and his son, Frank, designed the Art Association Building and Hazard Fountain. By the early 1940s, the Founders Circle of the Garden Club developed Honor Parkway to recognize war veterans. Only the sign and two palms remain today. In 1946, Florida Power and Light opened on the bay where Centennial Park is located today. Civic leader Carl Bickel constructed a replica of a Spanish fort behind the Municipal Auditorium in 1948. Known variously as Museum of Arms, Weapons Park, and Fort Juan Ortiz, the fort contained assorted cannons, tanks, a P-38 American fighter plane, and one of the famous French Merci trains. 49 train cars filled with tens of thousands of gifts were sent to America from France as a thank you for our war efforts. All that remains today is the stucco Sentry House. During the Sarasota School of Architecture movement in the 50s and 60s, the Cultural Center gained the Sarasota Garden Club and the Victor Lundy Blue Pagoda building. That unique building was inspired by a nearby Japanese lantern which was donated by Mrs. Ralph Caples to the Garden Club in 1936. Soon afterwards, our first symphony hall was constructed, and the youth center next door provided a place for teenagers to hang out and enjoy the activities held there. Later came the Selby Library and the Van Wezel Performing Arts Hall. Since the completion of the Van Wezel in 1968, the area has remained mostly intact. Today, the historic district includes the Municipal Auditorium, the Lawn Bowling Greens, the Arts Center, the Chidsey Library Building, and the Sarasota Garden Club. Our proposal is to increase the size of that district by adding Tuttle's Puddle, Victor Lundy's Blue Pagoda Building, the Gee Whiz Building, the small beach on the bay, and the estuary south of the Van Wezel. In effect, this expanse will become a continuous park from the highway to the bay. The city of Sarasota owns the land and the buildings. The county currently leases and maintains the Chidsey Building. Perhaps a similar arrangement can be crafted to include the Blue Pagoda and the Gee Whiz structures. As a sizable park, it would behoove the city and county to work together to maintain the land and structures under their Parks and Recreation departments. The pagoda's interior would be returned to its original design. Then, it will serve as an educational site during the day and be available at night for private events and weddings. The rental fees will offset the cost of maintaining it. Also, a new well-lighted boardwalk will be added to surround Tuttle's Puddle. The Chidsey is being considered with a similar goal in mind. It will showcase a special collections library and an exhibit gallery during the day. At night, it is available as a fundraising venue. Consider a different yet sensible mission for the Gee Whiz. It can now operate as a lifelong learning community hub. Think of professional artisans, students, interns, and volunteers having a space that is dedicated to conserving or restoring museum-worthy treasures. Those items are currently warehoused in the county archives, just waiting for attention. Gee Whiz could also accommodate a lab to clean and preserve original paintings by famous local mid-century artists, and even framed 12x8 murals that hung in the old Orange Blossom Hotel in the late 1940s. Hundreds of vintage commercial films that were produced in Sarasota will be stabilized and digitized at this location. Vintage fashion for exhibit purposes will also be restored there. An affordable admission will be charged to support the building's utilities, maintenance costs, and a fund to raise the entire facility when sea level rise becomes an issue in a few decades. But what about the shuffleboard course, you ask? Young people have discovered shuffleboard in other Florida municipalities and find it to be a wonderful place to socialize with friends after work. Food and beverage trucks would be permitted to operate after dark. Our courts would need to be replicated, and the project is prime for naming rights. If we eliminate the expansive parking lot in front of the historic district, it could be incorporated into the district. Appropriate native landscaping and walkways are amenities that everyone enjoys. Water will be absorbed by the plantings instead of allowing it to run off onto the highway. The newly naturalized area would have enough space for a dog park that allows for downtown condo residents to exercise their pets. Replicas of the old downtown streetlights that are LED compatible would be added to give a nod to our heritage. It is assumed the Van Wezel will remain, while the Sarasota Orchestra is contemplating plans to vacate their building and relocate out east. That move would allow for a parking garage to replace the spaces vacated at the Municipal Auditorium and the Van Wezel. Food trucks will be able to park on the northwest side of the garage and serve as a midway point for customers that are approaching from the historic district venues or from shoreline activities. There's plenty of open space for picnicking under the palms. Sea level rise concerns will be addressed with a modern elevated walkway along the waterfront. Native landscaping will mitigate sound generated from the activities, ensuring no impact on residents in distant condos. A majority of attendees at the Bay workshops expressed a desire to not have privately owned massive buildings on the site. That said, most residents do not, nor can they afford to live in a high-rise waterfront condo. This presents an opportunity for one spectacular landmark to be developed on the northern boundary of the property. A contemporary nautical-themed structure will feature an observation tower for people to see how beautiful Sarasota is from its decks that top out at 180 feet above ground. This amenity will be as tall as the plaza at 5 points, but 45 feet lower than the average height of nearby condos and hotels. This architectural showpiece will not interfere with sight views from condos and in fact will raise the property values. The time is right for the talented architects and engineers in our community to design a futuristic observation tower. Such a remarkable structure called Spinnaker Tower is in Portsmouth, England. It will symbolize our beginnings when our first settler, William Whitaker, arrived in a small boat in 1847 not 50 yards from Centennial Park. Not only will our version be utilized by people to gaze out over the bay, the Gulf of Mexico, and the mainland, but also allow moat marine scientists to probe red tide outbreaks in the Gulf and measure the bay's health. Their Marine Policy Institute will monitor sea level rise, and coastal protection data will be collected by the Coast Guard. In tandem with the county's Emergency Operations Center by I-75, the tower will support the coastal mainland and keys with real-time hurricane evacuation measures. Red exterior lighting can signal when mandatory evacuation orders have been declared. Year-round, the tower will attract residents, visitors, and students. The Spinnaker Tower draws 450,000 people a year, and Portsmouth is half the size of Sarasota. Aesthetically, the structure will also serve as a distinctive uplighted beacon at night that complements the lighting of the nearby Ringling Causeway Bridge. To link the existing features of the bay to the heart of the downtown, let's envision how that can be accomplished in a creative way that reflects Sarasota's cultural reputation. This aspect again calls for local architectural and engineering expertise. Let's say you are going downtown to eat dinner before heading to the Van Wezel for a performance. If you park in the State Street garage, the Whole Foods garage, or the Palm Avenue parking garage, there is no need to retrieve your car after your meal. Simply return to the garage where you parked or wait at Selby Five Points Park for an iRide vehicle to pick you up. The vehicles will circulate every 15 minutes to and from the bay. You will be transported through the Rosemary District to the corner of Central Avenue and Boulevard of the Arts. From there, you will access an above-street, precast stress ribbon bridge. This practical structure is built above the medians and does not interfere with traffic. Most importantly, it serves as an overpass to the bay and is aptly called Promenade of the Arts. The platform is held up by steel pillars that can hold the weight of the electric mini shuttles and pedestrians. It will be a safe, well-lit, weather-protected overpass accessible only by the electric ride services, bicycles, and pedestrians. The roof of the tunnel will support small solar collectors. The energy produced will provide electricity for lighting and cooling of the structure's interior. Imagine this waved-themed structure leading all the way to the sail tower after you've safely crossed 41. The wind veil covering it transforms the tunnel into a living art installation as it flows throughout the property. There will be stopping off points at the Historic District Park, the parking garage, the Van Wezel, and the tower. Many of the residents living or working in the downtown sector will find this to be a wonderful way to experience our bay without having to drive to Siesta Beach or Lido to enjoy sunset activities. It is especially important to consider that the tower and the unique overpass system will generate construction and machinist jobs for years. After that, other employment opportunities arise, including scientific research, emergency management, service jobs, and structural maintenance will be ongoing for decades to come. How will all this be funded, you ask? After Sasaki evaluates all the suggestions and ideas it has gathered, several concepts will be presented to the City of Sarasota for approval. If this plan is considered, it will require a comprehensive study to determine the actual costs of planning, permits, and execution. Like any other meaningful undertaking, it's advisable to prioritize each phase and expect it will take a number of years until it reaches fruition. From our past experiences, look to how baseball stadiums, Nathan Benderson's rowing park, the proposed Moat Marine Aquarium, the contemplated Florida History Museum, the Legacy Trail, and our public libraries were conceived and accomplished over time. With city and county cooperation, private funding, naming rights, grants, and community alliances, we can do this, Sarasota. Who knows? Maybe 20 years from now, the Legacy Trail will connect all the way from Venice to the Legacy Tower. Imagine that.